This is Southern Cross News with Rachel Williams.
New salmon harvesting off the Tasman Peninsula is triggering concerns from fishers, boaters and environmentalists. Huon Aquaculture is temporarily moving fish to Norfolk Bay for biosecurity reasons after they were previously affected by a virus.
A community meeting overflowing today as locals came to hear about a new salmon farming development.
How many of you have got a boat licence? Hands up.
Huon Aquaculture to temporarily move harvesting to an existing but unused lease in Norfolk Bay, but it's stirring waves with boaters.
It's the only bay that I can go into in the southern region that's actually not got a fish farm in it, and now we've got a fish farm in it. So I know that I'm going to be starting to pick up plastic there for a start.
These pens off the Lyme Bay State Reserve will be used to harvest fish from its Storm Bay sites for biosecurity and safety reasons. Huon says they had contracted POM virus, and while recent testing has come back negative, some fish could still be carrying it. But fishers like Mark are concerned by the move.
In fact, they've said in their statement that they will leave the lease open for any time that they want to use the lease in the future, next year, the year after. And in fact, there's 12 more finfish farms in Norfolk Bay which could be activated at any time.
Huon representatives weren't at today's meeting, but say they're engaging directly with stakeholders, pointing people to their website for information. And this development isn't a stepping stone for permanent operations in the area.
People are outraged. There was no chance for them to talk about the impacts on them and how much they love the bay, and no chance to do a proper assessment.
In terms of salmon farming, we have a position of supporting growth, and we support the 6,000 jobs in the salmon farming sector across Tasmania. It's a very important part of our industry.
Huon wasn't available for interview. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
And hundreds of Tasmanians have angrily protested a proposal to sell dozens of Anglican churches across the state. Opponents of the plan voiced their disappointment and vowed to take the fight forward at a rally in Campbelltown.
A sermon for those feeling betrayed by their church and a call to arms.
We are going to settle for nothing less than the bishop remove our churches and our cemeteries from this list of properties for sale.
Hundreds filled a school hall in Campbelltown, angry over a decision by the Anglican Church to sell off 76 churches to help fund the $8.6 million needed to compensate survivors of historical sex abuse. Even some survivors who endured the historical cruelty voiced their concerns at the fire sale.
At least 14 boys in my year were raped. Fortunately, I had the experience of my primary school to know how to handle these sorts of situations.
Others are scathing of the way the church has communicated with parishes. Bothwell's Wayne Doran said little notice was given when services were recently stopped at his church.
We're asking them to actually come and have a better consultation. All the people in Bothwell knew nothing about this process. We only found out because there was a notice pinned to the church door to say services had ceased.
The meeting passed 5 motions rejecting the process, as well as a move to incorporate as a body.
We don't believe it's necessary to sell 78 churches and 108 properties in Tasmania. Perhaps some will have to be sold or need to be sold, but that should be up to the decision of the local parish.
In a statement today, the church said it was still interested in community feedback and had extended the deadline for submissions for groups to consider their response. Care and access to graves is a major worry for parishioners. Michael Lefevre has generations buried at Pine Garner's Anglican Church.
I have 2 children buried in the cemetery. My parents are in the cemetery and my grandparents are in the cemetery. And a lot of people in Pine Garner have that same scenario.
Labor has accused the government of dragging its feet on reviewing the Burials Act. The government insists it will review the legislation and will strengthen it where possible. Sean McComish, Southern Cross News.
A plan to lower power bills and see more solar energy used on Tasmanian farms has been extended by the state government. Under the scheme, grants can be used for projects such as irrigation pumps, solar panels and heating or cooling equipment.
This farm energy program will provide opportunities, $1 for dollar, up to $20,000 for farmers over the next 3 years, and it's an expansion of our Tasmania First Energy initiative.
The Energy Minister says he wants to see greater take-up of renewable energy on farms. A parliamentary inquiry is putting short-stay accommodation like Airbnb and stays into the spotlight. Now, the Tasmania Fire Service is adding fuel to the debate, warning of a potentially catastrophic risk to the public unless regulations are modernised.
With the growth in sites like Airbnb and stays, a parliamentary inquiry is examining its impact on Tasmania.
We're very convinced that this is an important part of the Tasmanian economy and tourism in particular, and they have an important part to play, and we've got to get the balance right.
More than 190 submissions have been made, one of those from the Tourism Industry Council. It's concerned about the difference in costs for these new operators compared with traditional accommodation providers, different rates of electricity, insurance liabilities and higher council rates.
We don't want to stop these guys from entering the industry. We want them to do it, but if you're we're going to allow it, encourage it. We want them to all be part of the same sector and absolutely have the same cost structure, and where possible try and reduce that cost structure for everyone.
The fire service is warning about safety. By its calculations, 47% of Airbnb listings were in bushfire-prone areas. In an emergency, it said visitors are vulnerable because they're unfamiliar with the area and how to access public alert information. The submission saying a policy gap in regulation is laying the foundation for an unacceptable risk to public safety, and the consequences are proven to be catastrophic.
But of course, fire and safety is important, but in terms of the inquiry, we're not going to provide running commentary on different submissions to the inquiry, but what we want to do is ensure that we get the balance right.
The industry's impact on housing supply and affordability has been key to the debate. Councils are calling for more data on this impact and also for increased planning controls.
If there are commercial Airbnb operations, that they ought to comply with planning schemes. And we'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, on a local government by local government basis, to see what the impact is under the planning scheme.
In its own submission, Airbnb said it's an important contributor to the economy, with guests spending $86 million in Tasmania in the 2015 financial year. Public hearings into the issue will be held next month. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
Forecasters are warning Tasmanians to brace for snow as low as 200 metres in parts of the state tonight. A cold front passing today is bringing icy conditions in its wake. Low snow is predicted in the southwest, while frost is most likely in most parts over the next 3 mornings. Temperatures are expected to drop to 0 degrees across much of the state during the week. A Tasmanian diver has captured the moment a southern right whale and her calf swam right in front of his eyes in Bicheno. Mitch Harb was in the water 6 metres deep when the majestic mammal glided past. The diver says all whale watching guidelines were followed when filming the video. After months of hard work and rehearsal, a group of dedicated young actors is getting ready to step into the spotlight. 23 Scotch Oakburn students plus a few extra puppets have created their rendition of the hugely popular Avenue Q.
Welcome to Avenue Q.
It confronts a lot of issues that are very relevant to young people. So things like your sexuality, things to do with racism, things to do with friendships, relationships, and certainly the internet.
The curtain comes up this Wednesday.
Lauderdale's premiership hopes remain alive and well after ending Clarence's year at Launceston Arena overnight. The Roos were never in it on the scoreboard as the Bombers booked a semi-final showdown with Launceston with a thumping 58-point win. A class above from the opening bounce, Henry Keranayu helped whip the Lauderdale faithful into a frenzy. Having it all their way, the Bombers helped themselves to a handy 4-goal lead at the main break, leaving the Roos with a big fight on their hands as the home side's frustrations boiled over. Trent Standen fighting the middle of the sticks one last time in his final game in red and blue. Boxed in on the boundary, the Clarence coach did his best to provide a spark, but the Bombers couldn't be contained as Phil Bell-Chambers loaded up from long range. Kirinayu slipping out of the Roos' grasp yet again, along with the match. With a semi-final clash with Launceston awaiting them, the visitors were relentless, sending a clear message to the remaining clubs to not count them out of premiership contention just yet. And the Devonport Strikers have wrapped up the NPL title race thanks to a 3-goal win over Launceston City overnight, with the home side gifting the Strikers their first.
Off the post and nearly in. It's been given as in. Well, miscommunication on the line from Launceston City.
Devonport skipper Braden Mann setting Miles Barnard up a short time later before slotting one through himself in penalty time to secure the 3-0 win, as the best side all season added another NPL title to the list. The University of Queensland has claimed the Women's Rugby 7 Uni Series with a win over Macquarie University in Hobart today. While it was a difficult tournament for host the UTAS Lions, who played off for 5th spot against the University of Canberra this morning. But despite the hometown support, the girls from Canberra proved too good for the Lions, coming away the 25-12 point winners.
Good evening. 16 degrees today for Hobart. Launceston and Burnie had a top of 14 with 13 degrees in Devonport. 16 was the top at Fingal and also Bushy Park. 15 for St Helens, Grove and Ouse. 14 on King Island and also at Wynyard. Low Head, Smithton and Flinders Island all 13 degrees with 12 the top for Strawn. On the charts, it shows mostly mid-level cloud covering Tasmania today as part of an extensive cloud band extending over the state. Another band of thick cloud associated with the complex low extends across southeast Queensland into New South Wales. The remainder mostly clear. Tomorrow the cold front moves into the Tasman. A surface trough remains on the WA coast and there is also another trough over inland Queensland. Southwesterly winds 20 to 25 knots tomorrow, reaching 30 about the east, shifting south to southeasterly later. Winds lighter in the west with seas up to 3 metres. There is a strong wind warning for eastern coastal waters, a road weather and bushwalkers alert for snow and ice on roads and tracks as low as 250 metres, and a sheep grazers alert for the southeast. On to the forecast. Showers through the south tomorrow, 9 for Hobart and Dover, Ouse 10 degrees, 12 in Launceston and Devonport, 11 for Scottsdale, a frosty start expected there, 11 in Burnie and Stanley, showers clearing for Strawn 10 degrees, with a shower or two for the east coast, St Helens 11 degrees, 10 for Swansea and 9 degrees at Ross. Well, a frosty start expected for all areas throughout the state on Tuesday. Coastal showers for the south and the east, but pretty fine elsewhere. Very similar conditions again expected on Wednesday, with showers throughout the northwest extending statewide later on throughout the day on Thursday. Showers and 20 degrees tomorrow for Perth, Adelaide cloudy and 16, showers for Melbourne 13, 17 in Sydney, 25 and sunny in Brisbane with a top of 33 in Darwin. And at the moment it's 7 degrees in Hobart, 9 for Launceston and 8 for Devonport. Rachel, I'll have to put the budgie smugglers away and get the Ugg boots back out.
That's a good thing, I think. Thanks, Sam. Well, that's all your news for now. On behalf of the entire team, thanks for joining us. Have a great week. Good night.